By the way, my name is Meredith. My husband Phil and I are the pastors here. It is our great privilege to get to lead this church family. And we believe that what we do here is pretty simple. We declare Jesus everywhere. We think that the name of Jesus can change your entire life, that it is a name that is above all names, and that it is unchanging and it is all powerful. And then we lead believers. We lead people who have said, I want to live a life like Jesus and a life of resilient faith. That means we believe that there is a faith that you can have that will carry you in every season of your life. An unshakable faith that says, on my mountaintops, he's faithful. In my valleys, he's faithful. And in the middle grounds where I live most of my life, he's faithful still. He's faithful. And so we're glad that you're with us this morning. Thank you, Kim. That's lovely. How good is this team in leading us in worship today? We're so grateful for you guys. And one of the things that we talk a lot about here at Cornerstone is tables. We believe that there is something powerful and dynamic and important that happens when we gather in this large gathering on a weekly basis, and that we should be consistent and faithful in this gathering, and that God has also called us to gathering around tables in small spaces, and that there is something transformational and deeply connected to our faith in this model that we see in Jesus of gathering with the crowd and then gathering around tables together to talk about the things of God, to support each other, and to be together. Really, the growth track that Pastor Mark was talking about is our first table. It's our first place where we come and we sit together, and you can meet someone and build a relationship and start to connect with other people who are part of this church family or who are deciding if they want to be part of this church family. And we gather in official small groups that we call life groups, and we gather around tables and we pray for each other and we discuss the word and we support each other and encourage each other, and we gather in all kinds of official ways around unofficial ways around tables, because we believe that life is supposed to be done around tables together with people. But today I want to talk about the trouble with tables is people. I've never had any issues with the table of a table. I've never had any issues with the chair of a table. I have never had any issues with the food that is brought to a table. In fact, I still do a little dance when the food is brought to the table. When the food comes, I like to shimmy. I'm like, oh yes, the food is here. And I saw my kids doing it the other week. They were like, oh, the food. And I was like, what are you guys? Oh, that's my food dance. That's where they got that from. Because the food has never given me any trouble at the table. The issue that I have had with tables is the people that come to the tables. And I started thinking about this first Sunday in November. And I started thinking, God, what will help your people in this season? And I started thinking about moving into the most wonderful time of the year. And all of the tables that we will be gathering around over the coming months as you meet with your family and extended family and your friends who have become like family. And I started thinking about the conversations that I've been having with people in my life over the last couple of weeks, and how already some of the questions that arise around families gathering together have already started to rise, because people are moving time slots and people are starting to vie for their space. And one side of the family, your dad's side of the family, said they were going to meet on this day, but now they're trying to slide in on mom's side of the family's time slot for that particular holiday. And so now that's creating a tension point. And it's not the table so much that's giving you issues, it's the people who will be at the table. And so I thought today we could prepare our hearts and our minds for the way that we engage in these family dynamics, the way that we walk into this season, the way that we can handle and carry ourselves well as people of God, as followers of Jesus, in what is sometimes a difficult space to be in. It will no way be an exhaustive study of family dynamics and how you can engage with your family dynamics. There are those who are far more studied and licensed to help you with those types of things, but I do hope that it will help prepare us to walk into this season in a good way. So God, we thank you that you're with us. We thank you that you care for us, and we thank you for your love. As we gather over these moments together, I ask that your Holy Spirit lead us, guide us, and direct us, Jesus. God, I thank you for the words that you have spoken to me, and I ask you to help me deliver them clearly. I ask you to help them to change us, transform us, and make us a little bit more like you, Jesus. In your name, amen. So here's the trouble with people. This is the trouble with me, this is the trouble with you, and this is the trouble with every person that you know. We are all broken. Every single one of us is carrying some level of brokenness in us. Unless you are Adam and Eve in the garden in the perfect place in Genesis 1 and 2, which I am assuming you are not if you are in this room or on this stream today. And I feel like that is a fair assumption for me to make today. Then you are carrying some type of brokenness. We have been affected by the dynamic of what happened when Adam and Eve made that fatal decision to step outside the trust and the will of God and decide on their own to live in their own decision, in their own judgment. In that space beforehand, they lived in this perfect place, perfectly whole, in perfect relationship with God, in perfect relationship with creation, and in perfect relationship with one another. And they make this decision to listen to the serpent and to eat of the tree, and God comes to find them, and we see that all of the sudden the effect of the decision they have made comes into play, and they find themselves no longer in perfection but in distortion and in brokenness. Their relationship with God has been disrupted. The trust that they had with him, and all of the sudden they feel shame before God, and they go and they hide from God, and that relationship has been disrupted. And if you read through Genesis 3, it says their relationship with creation has been disrupted, because no longer does the earth just yield fruit for them that they can eat at their will, but it's through the sweat and through the toil, and the earth is going to produce thistles for them. They now have animosity with their relationship with creation, and animosity and competition and blame and accusation enter their relationship with each other. One of the first things that we see is that they begin to blame almost right off the bat. God's like, Adam, what happened? And Adam's like, well, that woman that you gave me. Boom, 2 hits, one sentence. That woman you gave me, it wasn't me. Adam's like, wasn't me. It was her and it was you, and that was the situation. And then it goes to Eve, and Eve's like, well, it was the serpent. It wasn't. Immediately, blame, accusation come out, distorting the relationship that they have. And if you have been around people, you know that we still now live in this space where we are blaming others, where we are accusing others, where our own insecurities cause us to posture. Let's not act like the issue is with all the other people at the table alone. You too are part of the brokenness that comes into the space and wants everyone to think that your year has been better than your year has actually been. And so you posture yourself and you talk up how great everything is going and how awesome everything is. And you're just sharing about all the wonders of your children and how fantastic they've been doing, knowing good and well you guys were screaming at each other on the way here to get to this dinner today. It's crazy. And we come to these tables and our family gatherings are a collision of all of our brokenness. And here we come to these tables with all of our broken pieces. And you already know what you're getting ready to encounter. You're already preparing. You already, some of us feel the tension. You just thinking about it, your palms are getting a little bit damp and your jaw is getting a little bit tight because you know when you come in, somebody's going to have something to say. They're going to say things like, oh, how's that little shop you got doing? That little shop. You're like, that business that I run? That has taken my blood, sweat, and tears, that I'm the first person in our family to ever own anything, to ever start anything, to ever do anything. How's my little shop doing? And you already know that it's coming. You already know that Uncle Larry wants to talk to everybody about his opinions about politics. And that he is going to be taking a roll call on who voted for who next Tuesday because he wants to know, does the family line up with his? You already know it's going to be playing Dodge 'em with Uncle Larry because I don't want to get wrapped into this conversation with you, Uncle Larry, because we don't see everything exactly the same and I don't want to have to do it. And my singles, God bless you. I'm praying for you because I know they're coming with the why haven't you gotten married yet? And how come you just can't find a nice girl? And how come you just can't find a nice boy somewhere? And you're like, I don't want to have this conversation with you about maybe I don't want my marriage to look like all the marriages I'm looking like at this table right now. And you're just preparing. Or maybe it's more hurtful than that, and it's something that you desperately desire. And you don't want to have to look at your family throwing salt in that wound time and time again. And you're preparing right now to have to look at your family and explain to them or dis-explain to them why you don't have kids yet. Because you don't want to enter into the conversation with them that you have been trying for 3 years and it's none of their business because you see them once a year. There is a lot of brokenness that we bring around these tables. There is a lot of issues and conflict, and you might find yourself anywhere on the range, but what I can guarantee you is from absolutely chaotic, looking like Jerry Springer, to you grew up in a family who had 2 loving parents. You have dynamics that you are going to have to deal with. I watched 2 aunts a few years ago almost throw down over who brought which desserts. Over dynamics. I walked into the kitchen just in time to see both of them bring the same piece of confectionery to the table. And the conversation ensued of, well, don't you remember I said I was going to? No, you told me you were going, and I just slid right back out of that kitchen. Because some aunts can get serious about who is supplying which dessert. There are dynamics that are coming your way, no doubt. So, turn with me to the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 17. Because if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, you have spiritually been saved into righteousness. That means that disruption of your relationship with God has been put back in right standing. And now we live in a way to have our actions exemplify the outworking, the outliving of that right relationship and live in right relationship with other people. So if you feel yourself nervous and strained and stressed about what these next 8 weeks might hold for you, this is 2 verses that I want you to write on your heart, to write on your mirror, to memorize for yourself, because I believe they will help us together. Romans 17 says, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. The Apostle Paul is writing to the church in Romans, and they are having all kinds of issues, and he tells them, repay no one evil for evil. Do not return the evil that is sent your way. Do not retaliate in everything that comes your way. In fact, he goes on later in that same chapter to say to them, if someone does do you wrong, he actually says, if they're hungry, bring them food. If they're thirsty, bring them a drink. Do not get in a verbal sparring match with the person who throws them. What if, when Cousin Jimmy came at you, instead of coming back at Cousin Jimmy, you went into the kitchen and came back and said, I noticed that your drink was empty. I thought you might want another water as well. I brought you a water. Not with sarcasm, not with smirky. Some of you were like, yeah, I could do that. No, not like that. Like genuinely, with the love of God in your heart, you said, I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to take a road that says, hey, it looks like you're hungry. I heard that they cut the pies, and I don't know if you know, but we have 2 of the pecan pie this year. So I thought you might want a piece of pecan pie, and I just brought that back to you so that you didn't have to get up from watching the game, Cousin Jimmy. I just wanted you to have that. Paul says it's like heaping coals on their head, so that's your reward. It's like heaping metaphorical coals on their head when you return the evil that is done to you peaceably, when you love them abundantly. Because here's the thing that I believe about it, is that it's more about you than it is about them. It's more about who are you going to be. It's more about who is the person that you are becoming and what is the reflection of Jesus that you are bringing and that you are giving. Phil and I often are talking about different scenarios and different situations and how we're going to engage in them or respond to them. And time again, what we come back to is this isn't about what someone quote unquote deserves. This isn't about what might be always justifiable. This is about who are we going to be? What kind of a person am I? How am I going to engage in this situation? And Paul says, let's be the kind of people who don't repay evil with evil, but who come instead and bring good. And I love this line. He says, give thought. Give thought. How often do we just react, respond? We just jump into something. We've spent 3 weeks worrying about it, but we haven't given thought. How do we give thoughtfulness to the way that we're going to engage in these situations? How do we slow down enough to say, who am I really going to be in this situation? What is it that I really want to do in the midst of what's going on? There's another verse that says, who builds a house without counting the cost, without creating a plan? You are building the house of your life. You are building the house of who you are. Have you taken time to count the cost, to create the plan, to think ahead? You know that when you get there, your sister has different rules for what her kids can and can't do than what your kids can and can't do. Have you given thought to how you can plan and preemptively have a conversation that says, hey, how do we engage in this? Because what I see us do time and time again is we worry about it leading up to it, then we get to the day and we spend the day frustrated, mad, and grumbling and complaining to other family family members? Can you believe the kids are in there doing da-da-da-da-da? That's not what I want my kids doing. But did you thought about how you were going to engage in this situation? He says, give thought to it, and then do what is honorable. Do what is honorable. This is taking the higher place. It is saying that I see these other people as children of God. I see the image of God. Honor says that I see in you the image of God, and I will respond to you accordingly as a fellow image bearer of God. Not with derogatory terms, not with dislike, not with backing out unexpected, not with a lack of communication, but I am going to engage honorably in what happens. And I think James gives us tools for how to do this. He has one fast and two slows. In James 1:19, he says, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Quick to hear. Some translations say listen. Slow to speak, and slow to anger. You've maybe heard that old phrase that you have two ears and one mouth, because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. That is fantastic advice. I don't know exactly how you're quick to listen, right? It's kind of metaphorical language, but this is the thought, and this is the idea that my listening should be happening at a greater pace, at a greater depth, and at a greater consistency than my speaking is happening. Now, the issue with that is that I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things that I want people to hear. And I hear them say things, and my first reaction and my first response is to give them my opinion. And this is where we end up in battles at tables with the peoples that are at the tables with us, because the problem is not so much the table, it's the other people that are there, and they're also opinions that are quick to respond and are quick to share their thoughts and are quick to throw off little comments and little thoughts about who we should be and what we should be doing. But I think that we should be quick to listen. And when we're quick to listen, we should seek to understand. Understanding gives us a greater depth of capacity for empathy. It gives us a greater bandwidth of patience for the people that we're walking with. It gives us more clarity on why is it that you are the way that you are. Here's an idea. When Uncle Larry starts spouting off his political opinions that are different than your political opinions, instead of shooting back with your opinion, ask a question. Seek to understand. This may not eliminate the dynamics that are happening within your family situation, and it certainly does not excuse the way that people behave sometimes, but it might give you a greater capacity to walk with them and to deal with them. When you have a cousin who lets her children run absolutely buck wild, and you are always stressed about it and concerned, because you know they're going to be crazy when you get to grandma's house. But when you sit down and you listen, and you ask questions, and you seek to understand, you find out that potentially she grew up in a house that was very physically and emotionally abusive to her. And she hasn't quite figured out how to create healthy boundaries for her kids, but all she knows is that she doesn't want to replicate that thing. And so in lieu of that, she lets her kids run wild because all she knows is that she wants them to have a freedom that was never afforded to her, and that she wants them to have an openness that she never experienced. And yes, maybe it means that her children need some new boundaries, but I bet your level of understanding and empathy and grace for the way that her kids run crazy in comparison to what your angelic children are apparently doing at grandma's house. When you understand how it is that she got here. When we sit at a table and we are slow to speak, we are quick to listen, when we are quick to listen and we seek understanding instead, it gives us an awareness, an ability to give people grace beyond what we would initially do when we are leading with our opinions. And then it says, be slow to speak. Here's the thing. It doesn't say don't speak. Right? This isn't saying go into your family situations and swallow all of your thoughts and swallow all of your opinions and don't communicate the boundaries that are needed. It's saying after you have sought understanding, after you have taken time to listen, being thoughtful in what you are about to do, now we begin to speak. Now we speak with thoughtfulness about how we are going to engage in this situation. We speak with thoughtfulness about the way that we express our own viewpoints on things. We speak with thoughtfulness about what it is that we desire to see and our expectations for what this day is going to bring to us. And we speak with words that are helpful. We speak with words that are building up. We speak with words that are drawing each other in together, not with words that are grumbling, not with words that are accusatory, not with words that are blaming and that are causing further division inside our families, because this is what all of us tend to do. When we have a shortcoming in ourselves, we assign external factors to why that must be. And when someone else has a shortcoming in their life, we assign internal characteristics to why that must be. This is what that means. I was late today because the school pickup line took a long time, and then I hit every red light on the way here. You were late today because you're disorganized and lazy and don't, right? I know, we afford ourselves so much grace. We're like, oh, no, I'm very together. And we do this when we go into our family dynamics. We say, well, the reason that this happened to us is because of A, B, and C, external factors. But this person doesn't have their life together. This person is just arrogant and conceited. I'm just trying to get people to hear my side of things, because otherwise no one is asking me about what's going on in my life. And both of you just want the same thing. We want to be recognized, and we want to be seen, and we want to be loved and valued by the people who are dearest to us, but you think it's a characteristic flaw of them, and for you it's an external factor of a reason that you have to engage. So we have to be so thoughtful about the slow way that we speak, that we don't begin to accuse our family members, that we don't begin to blame other people for things that are not, in fact, the way we always see them to be. And then it says, be slow to anger. Be slow to anger. Be slow to letting that burning feeling, that hot behind your ears, start burning up on the inside of you as you're sitting there cutting your turkey with all the force of the heavens and the earth. Be slow to anger. Slow to anger. There's a proverb says, I think it's in Proverbs 19, says, good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. Some translations say it is the glory of a king to overlook an offense. Come on, who wants to have good sense? Right? Who wants to have good sense when you enter a situation? Come on, who wants to respond like a king or like a queen who can overlook an offense? No doubt they are going to say some ignorant things to you. There will be some reasons to be offended. There will be some reasons to be offended when you gather together and people start asking you questions that is really none of their business. There will be reason. We have lots of families in our church where some of you are from somewhere international, from a foreign country, right? There will be reason to be offended as people who don't mean to be offensive ask you ignorant questions. Like, do they celebrate Christmas where you're from? Do they celebrate Thanksgiving where you're from? Let me just help you out if you're in this room and just beg with you to be thoughtful and to think about the meaning of the holiday that you are celebrating, and allow that to inform the questions that you ask of the international members of our church family community. We have over 20 nations represented here. So let me remind you that Thanksgiving is a holiday where we celebrate that the pilgrims who came to America from Europe made it through a winter, which means that is an American holiday. And that at Christmas we celebrate the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ, which means that is a Christian holiday and is celebrated anywhere that the people of God are, and actually more widely than that. There will be reason to be offended, is what I'm telling you, when people ask you ignorant questions. But let me remind you that it is the glory of kings to overlook those offenses. It is the glory of kings to say, I'm going to rise above that. I'm not going to let this pull me into anger. I'm not going to let this pull me into disputes. Instead, I am going to be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to get angry, because I have decided that I want to come around this table. I have decided that I want to be with the people, that I want to be a person of reconciliation, that I want to be a person that brings us back into relationship that more closely resembles what God always intended for our mutual relationships to look like. I have decided that that is the way that I am going to engage in this space. But when Paul's writing to the church in Romans, he also starts the second verse with this sentence: if it is possible. And then he says, so much as it depends on you, which is an acknowledgement that there are circumstances and there are situations where it is not possible, where there are pieces that are outside the scope of your control. There are pieces that have gone outside the scope of your influence, and it would be unfair for us to talk today about healthier ways to slow down and to engage at these tables with these people that you're related to, without also acknowledging that there are people in the room, in this service, who are thinking, gosh, I wish I had people to engage with like that. There are some of us who don't have families to go to, who have lost loved ones over the last 12 months and are wondering what their family gathering is going to look like this year. There are those of us who came up in ways that we don't really have a true family unit or people that we are connected to. There are people who are looking and who are searching and who are sitting among us, listening to us joke about Uncle Larry and all his political thoughts, saying, I wish I had an Uncle Larry to go toe-to-toe with. And I want to remind you that Psalm 68 says that God takes the lonely and he places them in families. That if you have lost someone over this last year, that if you have come up in a way that you don't have a cohesive family unit, that God has welcomed you into the family of God, and that we become that family. That we gather around these individuals, that we welcome them to our tables with no promises that it won't be any crazier than anything that has been described today, but that you will have a seat at that table. And the second group of people are people who are coming out of family environments who are saying, no, it's a little bit more complex than what you're describing right now. The family environment that I'm talking about is hostile. It is truly toxic and unhealthy, and I cannot in good conscience any longer engage in that space. It is physically unsafe for me to be there. It is emotionally unsafe for me to go into that space. I have children that I'm trying to raise with a new trajectory than the thing that God saved me out of, and I cannot in good faith and good conscience go in there. Then God has wisdom for you as well. He has faithfulness for you as well. He has welcomed you into a new family as well. And this is what I would say to you, is that as you move in those spaces, we're going to pray today that God gives you wisdom and how to disengage and maintain your honor, because it's still about who you are becoming. That God is going to give you wisdom and direction on how you create boundaries that say, this is what I'm willing to do, but I can't go any further. And He's going to give you the boldness and the fortitude to hold to the lines that He is speaking to you. And more than that, I want to say that we have a team that would love to talk to you and walk with you and help you in those incredibly difficult decisions. Nothing gets our souls more twisted, mixed up, confused, and I don't know if I know right from wrong anymore than family situations. And as you go into this space, if you find yourself going, I actually think that that's me, that I'm going to have to disengage, I want to invite you to reach out to the team, to call the offices so we can talk you through how it is to engage in that in an honorable way that still reflects the glory of God, that cares for your physical body and cares for your emotional health and your emotional wholeness. No one is telling you to go sit at the table with someone who has abused you time and time again and pretend like everything is okay. That is not the love of God. That is not the reconciliation of God. What it is an acknowledgement that that's not okay and that I'm moving away into something different. And so on the spectrum of where you might find yourself today, from I don't feel like I have any family left, and I feel lonely and desperate about what this holiday season is going to be like, to I have hostile situations that I need to make decisions about what my engagement looks like in it, to good old run-of-the-mill, crazy, confusing, conflicting family situations. Before we leave, I want us to pray today. If you know that you've already felt the tension rising about what is this holiday season going to look like, about how am I going to communicate, about what is it that we're going to do and how do I handle myself and hold myself, I would love for you to stand in this room right where you are so we can pray together today. If you want prayer to know how you're going to engage in these situations, just stand to your feet all across the room, standing up so we can pray for you. Thank you, love. I see you guys. You're standing to say, I know that that's me. You're standing because the house of God is the safest place that we come. The house of God is the place where we come and we say, I acknowledge that it's not me. Romans 8 says that in our weakness, the Spirit is made strong. And if you're in the room, I want you to look around and see people standing around you. And those of you who are of the family of God, just gather around them. Just stand around these people. We're going to pray together as a church family. I see someone here in this section who's standing. If I can have some experienced hosts or those of you who have been faithful for a while, come stand with her. I see you. I'm making sure in the balcony as well, we have people standing together. Because here's the thing, is that God has placed the lonely inside families. And so as people gather around you in this room, as online chats gather with you online, we're going to take the next minute, and those who are standing with you are going to pray His wisdom, His grace, His understanding into your life. And believe that as you gather around tables, the thoughtfulness of who God